According to the Guinness World Records, General Hospital, or GH, boasts of being the world's longest-running scripted drama series in production, as well as America's longest-running soap opera in production. GH premiered in April 1963 and boasts the titles of ABC's longest-running entertainment program and Hollywood's longest-running serial. It has also won more Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Drama Series than any other show to date.
General Hospital!
GH was created by Frank and Doris Hersley and began in an unnamed fictional city which would later become Port Charles, New York. The show's most recognizable faces were Emily McLaughlin and John Berardino, who were there from the very beginning until their deaths in the 1990s. From 1964 to 2007, Rachel Ames was also a cast member and is to date ABC's longest-serving actress in a soap opera. Surprisingly, GH was not the network's first soap opera. That merit goes to the short-lived Road to Reality, but which only lasted for a year before being quickly shelved. Lackluster ratings prevented GH's sister show, The Young Marrieds, from lasting more than a few seasons, and the other spin-offs, GH Night Shift and Port Charles, were doomed to the same fate. On a more positive note, GH episodes have doubled in length, as apparently fans can't get enough of the iconic series. Since the 1970s, the Spencer and Quartermain families have been the stars of GH. The show's super couple, Luke and Laura, managed to pull over 30 million viewers with their wedding episode, and celebrity guest stars such as Roseanne Barr, James Franco, and Elizabeth Taylor have been also part of Port Charles's history over the years. The new millennium did little to slow down GH's popularity. In September 2010, it became the oldest soap opera in America with the ending of As the World Turns, and a year and a half later, it would become the only soap opera left on ABC. As of late 2022, the show has aired over 15,000 episodes. John Reilly portrayed the well-beloved Sean Donnelly in GH from 1984 to 1995, briefly returning to the role for a couple of episodes in 2008 and another two in 2013. As the actor passed away in January 2021, a heartwarming tribute episode based on Sean was written and aired a few months later, neatly tying up any loose ends that the character had left behind. Die-hard fans of GH remember that the series was something of a spy and adventure show in the 1980s. When Luke Spencer was running from murder charges in 1984, he called on his best friend Robert Scorpio for help. Robert sent Luke to his old friend and former boss, Sean Donnelly, without knowing that Sean wanted the elusive Aztec treasure in Luke's possession. Sean, a retired spy, was bored with his placid existence and welcomed the thrill of going up against Robert. After kidnapping Robert's nearest and dearest, his plan almost fell apart when he thought that he'd killed Robert in the process. When Robert was revealed to be alive and came to arrest Sean, the latter was so pleased that he didn't even fight back. The pair made amends, and Sean helped Robert defeat one of the show's most notorious villains, Mr. Wu, in the Asian Quarter adventure. As a gesture of goodwill, Robert made Sean his daughter Robin Scorpio's godfather. Sean took his role as godfather seriously and devoted himself to Robin's well-being, while engaging in a whirlwind affair with Dr. Monica Quartermain. But the relationship was opposed by Alan and Edward Quartermain and didn't go far. Sean's next major storyline came in 1987, when a terrorist group targeting spies put him on a hit list. As former head of the World Security Bureau, WSB, Sean was in grave danger and had to be helped by Robert, who made the dramatic return to Port Charles to protect those he cared about most. Robert and Sean were assisted by Anna, Duke Lavery, and Tiffany Hill, and traveled to Mount Rushmore, where they caught the rogue terrorist group and its leader. A year later, Sean was struck by a midlife crisis, enamored of the glamorous Dr. Greta Engstrom. When Greta's husband was back in the picture, Sean tried to work things out with his old flame Tiffany. Although the spy's philandering ways broke Tiffany's heart, she eventually forgave him, and their intimate wedding ceremony took place in the Quartermain mansion. After his wedding, Sean helped his friend Felicia Jones find her husband Frisco's grave, after she was told that he'd been murdered. The next few years were tranquil for the Port Charles citizen until his arch-nemesis, Cesar Faison, joined the show in 1990. Flashbacks revealed that Cesar and Sean had conspired to break Robert and Nana's marriage apart. At the time, Sean was head of the WSB, and Cesar was the leader of a rival spy agency. The troublesome duo was united by their uncommon goal of breaking the Scorpios apart, but Sean didn't want to lose two of his best agents. Although Robert and Anna discovered the truth, Sean helped his friends defeat Cesar before the latter could force Anna to marry him. In 1991, Cesar poisoned Sean's wife Tiffany in a heinous act of revenge, leaving her comatose and mysteriously ill. As the possessor of the only cure, Cesar manipulated Sean to do his bidding. Sean himself was unaware that Cesar had caused his wife's illness. Once he found out, he joined forces with Robert and Anna once again to bring the nefarious agency leader down. In 1992, Sean served as acting police commissioner when Robert left town to pursue Cesar. When Robert and Anna were presumed dead while trying to stop Cesar, Sean assumed the position of permanent Port Charles Police Department commissioner and comforted his heartbroken goddaughter Robin. 1993 brought yet more problems as Sean's nemesis Luke returned to town and made his life a living hell. Sean's marriage also began splitting at the seams when his wife wished to adopt her deceased sister's son Lucas, who was in the custody of Bobby Spencer and Dr. Tony Jones. The adoption dilemma led to the downfall of Sean and Tiffany's marriage. He turned to the beautiful lawyer Jessica Holmes for comfort, and ironically, Tiffany forgot about adopting her nephew when she discovered she was pregnant. In a heart-wrenching plot twist, the stress of hearing Jessica tell Sean about her own pregnancy made Tiffany miscarriage. Later on, Jessica admitted to Sean that she'd lied and had never been pregnant. The love triangle became even more complicated when Jessica really did become pregnant, right when Sean and Tiffany began working on their marriage. When Jessica threatened to tell Tiffany, Sean returned the threat. When the lawyer was later found dead, Sean confessed to the murder in order to protect his wife, who he thought was the culprit. Later on, Ryan Chamberlain was proven to be the real murderer, and Sean and Tiffany's reputations were restored. In 1994, Sean and Luke were caught in a shootout with the notorious mobster Frank Smith. Frank shot Sean, but was killed by Luke before he could finish him off. If that wasn't bad enough, Sean was accidentally shot by Luke in the same year, and around the same time, Tiffany announced her pregnancy to family and friends. While it was recommended that Sean be transferred to a treatment facility in Boston, Massachusetts, the couple weighed their options and decided to leave town and start a new life. In 2019, it was revealed that Sean had dementia, which contributed to his passing away 2 years later. Prior to his death, he survived being pinned by a fallen crate, a head injury which resulted from a car accident, and 3 or 4 potentially deadly gunshot wounds. Shortly before leaving Port Charles in the 1990s, he and his wife were also tied up by Frank Smith's men and left in an alligator-infested swamp. So it's a miracle that Sean's character lasted as long as it did. John Henry Matthew Reilly, not to be confused with the actor John C. Reilly, was born in May 1934 in Chicago, Illinois. He was a relatively late bloomer in the acting industry, making his first screen appearances in the mid-1960s, with guest roles in Gunsmoke, Apple's Way, and Death Valley Days. With almost a decade of acting experience under his belt, John replaced John Collenbach in As the World Turns, stepping into the role as Dr. Dan Stewart. He left the show in September 1976 after 2.5 years and was replaced by John Collenbach. In 1977 and 78, he made a couple of guest appearances in The Bionic Woman and was seen in The Secrets of Three Hungry Wives and Lassie the New Beginning, 2 moderately successful TV movies. Some of the thespian's feature film work includes roles in Gorp and The Main Event. John's first recurring role came with the nighttime soap opera Dallas. In 1984, he was cast as Sean Donnelly in GH, but bowed out after 10 years, opting not to renew his contract and receiving a handsome payout from Wendy Ritchie, the executive producer at the time. In February 1995, Sean's character was written out of the show, and for the rest of the 90s, he sporadically played Del Douglas in Sunset Beach. Other minor roles include a stint as Kelly Taylor's father, Bill, in episodes of Beverly Hills 90210. Bill's character growth was stunted when he was written out of the show after being arrested and sent to jail. In January 2005, John replaced David Bailey as Alistair Crane in the NBC soap opera Passions. David Bailey had died 3 months prior in a tragic pool accident. Unfortunately, budget cuts led to John being dropped from the show in July 2006, and although he returned as a recurring character a year later, Alistair Crane was killed off in May 2008. John briefly returned to GH franchise for 2 episodes in October 2008 and another 2 episodes in August 2013. He later retired quietly and passed away in January 2021 of a heart attack. His wife Liz, 5 daughters, and 2 grandchildren were understandably devastated. Tributes poured in from every corner of the world, mostly from GH fans who fondly remembered Sean Donnelly. Generally, John is regarded as a great soap opera actor who was unable to fully tap into his potential, mostly as a consequence of budget cuts and redundant storylines. In 1986, he was nominated for Outstanding Actor in a Leading Role in a Daytime Serial at the Soap Opera Digest Awards for his work on GH. John's memorable on-screen wife, Tiffany Donnelly, was played by Sharon Wyatt from 1981 to 1983, and 1986 to 1994, briefly returning to GH in 2008 and 2021. Tiffany was introduced to the show when Luke and Robert traveled to Greece in an outlandish storyline that saw them stop Mikos Kassadine from freezing the world. Tiffany, a gorgeous B-movie actress, was romantically involved with Mikos' brother Victor. Nevertheless, she helped Luke and Robert break into Mikos' command center, in the process destroying the weather machine and killing the criminal mastermind. The blue-eyed blonde decided to leave Greece and make a new life for herself in Port Charles. She was also a guest at Luke and Laura's wedding, and would form a close friendship with Laura and be her daughter Lulu's godmother. Before meeting Sean and falling in love with him, Tiffany was briefly involved with Robert, but things didn't work out. After a couple of months in Port Charles, she was pursued by Dr. Noah Drake, who unceremoniously left her when his former flame Bobby Spencer returned to town. Tiffany was caught up in a toxic love triangle when Noah tried to get her back in her good books, after his relationship with Bobby failed yet again. Luckily, Tiffany realized that she was making a big mistake by becoming involved with an emotionally unstable man, and broke things off with Noah, which led him to leaving town. Following the presumed murder of Alan Quartermain, Tiffany began working for the family. It was around this time that Sean began pursuing her, just before being arrested for murder. Luckily, Alan's father Edward pulled strings and had Sean's murder charges dropped, allowing his and Tiffany's relationship to flourish. Tiffany also worked as a TV executive and reporter. She was arrested for drunk driving on various occasions and became physical with other characters in the show, such as Alexandria Quartermain and Jackie Templeton. Some of her most dramatic storylines saw her hospitalized after drinking poisoned milk, go into respiratory failure when she was given experimental drugs, and attempt suicide by overdosing on pills. It's undeniable that the constant plot twists in Tiffany's life made her one of the most memorable characters in the GH franchise. Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpicked these videos which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.